little bit of story about what it is we do and how we do it. And while I do that, I'm going to slowly introduce these wonderful, talented people that are behind me. And what I'm going to ask them to do when I actually get to their part or their role in this wonderful experience is talk about who they are, how many years they've been doing this professionally, how many years they've been in Central Florida, because this really is a group that's been together for many years in Central Florida. And at that point, we'll actually continue on down the panel, and you'll kind of get a sense of how all these different personalities, these wonderful different talents, touch every piece of this product that you saw in the other room over there. And it's not all just one style. It's not all one personality. It's all not one skill set. This is an unbelievable group of collaboration, of talent, artistry, and skill that brings all this stuff to life. And as you can see, it's a mix of people too. And the fun part of a fun little story, because you're going to hear lots of stories tonight, is that when we sat down tonight, I was able to ask all of them, if we were to get a short to represent our department, what color would you choose? Can you see? Nobody picked the same color. We got a few maybe similar or something like that. So that right off the top tells you the diverse group of what they find that inspires them that they get excited about. So that's kind of the beginnings of where this all started, and a thank you for us to be able to have this opportunity to do it. But the thing that's come in part of my experience with the design itself, I've actually been the art director or the design director for Universal Studios for 15 years. Professionally been working in the art industry or community for close to 26, 27 years. Moved to Orlando in 1990. Came down here to follow my dream with the movie industry, and got inspired by a lot of work that was happening here. Since then, now 2 years later, I've been able to make a career out of it and be fascinated and excited every day I get up and come to work. But the process starts always the same. It doesn't matter who these individuals start the process, what they're asked to do, draw a picture, paint a portrait, create a project, a prop, character, a piece of sculpture, they all start the same way. And that's probably the most fascinating thing when we sat down with the History Center. It's interesting because the story that you see across the way here has the same steps. It doesn't matter who starts the process, who ends the process, how many different people touch it along the way. It goes through, and we broke it down into 10 simple steps to talk to our audience, what it takes to create a piece of imagination, a piece of something that pops out of your mind, a word that comes to you, maybe even a feeling, and make it reality. Make it come to life, make it interact with your audience, make it have fun, make it play with you, make it scare you, make it give you a toy or cheerful moment or a sense of sadness. But it all starts the same way. It starts with that first image. What is that ideal? What is that one thing you want to create? What is that inspiration you want to provide? It starts with the written word sometimes. It starts with a writer. It starts with somebody to conceptualize that. A person who on our panel who does that is Rick Spencer over here in the back. I'm going to ask Rick to say a little bit about who he is, what he's done.
Thank you, TJ. I've been a resident down here for about 17 years, 16, 17, or 18. I'm back and forth to New York, where I had an office for many years. I'm a novelist. My stuff is published around the world in various languages, and I come out of the TV and movie business. My job is to capture and help inspire some of the ideas that these folks come up with, and then put them into words, the words into paragraphs, and the paragraphs into pages. And from that, these folks, I find inspiration and at the same time start creating amazing art that actually improves the writing. So that's really my story.
Rick has created many shows, many experiences with Halloween, some of the holiday shows. Works mostly focused to now with special events and corporate events. So some of the big clients that might come in like a Microsoft or something like that, they bring their suggestions and ideals to him, and he has to sit down and conceptualize what that might be and what we can create, and then works with the team here to help make that happen. The next step that you come into, once you start with that word, you actually start to put what I call visual pictures to those words. What does it now start to look like? What it might feel like? What it might actually become when it actually becomes real? And that's the next set of people that I want to introduce is the designers. The designers, there's multiple different types of designers that we do in the theme park, in the entertainment industry. from scenic designers to graphic designers to costume character designers to special effects designers and special effects and makeup designers. We're just on the art side. There's a whole technical division too of designers too that we're not represented tonight. This is just more the physical art aspects of it. I'm going to talk just this point about scenic designers, people that actually look at the written word and start to figure out the hard subject of how do we make that real? How do you make something that says explosive into a piece of scenery and make it physical, have dimensions, have scale, have shape to it, and have you as the audience come in contact with that? Because the number one thing at Universal that we love to do is to bring our audience in contact with the product. We don't want you to watch it, we don't want you to view it, we want you to actually interact with it. So some of tonight I'm going to come out, and I'm joking. But with that, the design set is this group right here. We have 4 wonderful designers from David Hughes to Mary Nestler to Kim Grommel and Curtis Hopkins. And I'll start with David to talk a little bit about himself, where he came from, how many years you've been in Central Florida.
Hi, I'm David, and first I gotta say I'm staring out here, and it's all teachers. At first, that's intimidating. And I just want you to take a look at everybody here and just realize we were all the weird kids in high school. So when you go back to classes and you see that weird kid, know there's hope. Okay? Just take a second, look at them, and know that. I've been in Central Florida since 1987. I started with Disney. I went freelance for about 10 years, did a little bit of television, worked on the Mickey Mouse Club, and then started with Universal back in '95. And for about the last 10 years, I've kind of been working exclusively with Halloween Horror Nights, designing the mazes and doing that. What's turned into pretty much a year-round job. How much do you want me to talk about what we do?
Well, I think we'll step and go over here because we're going to come back and get into questions about the product and stuff later. Just tell a little about yourself. This is
Hi, I'm Kim Grommel, and I've been with Universal 13 years. I came down here 15 years ago, freelanced with Disney and some of the other parks around town. Before that, I was up in near Philadelphia, and I was an illustrator up there. And I did anything that would pay the rent. I did magazine covers, game covers. I did over 600 postage stamps for foreign countries. I came down here as a painter. Didn't know about the 3D world, about designing something and turning it into something that you actually build and stand up. And where David comes from a theater background, I came from a 2D background. But found that I had a certain ability to figure that out, to take 2D and design it and create a 3D environment. So, and actually I start with a blank piece of paper and a pencil. And TJ mentioned that. If you go through our exhibit there, you'll see a lot of doodles. That's what we start with. All of us. People think in this day and age it's all about computers and everybody sits there at a computer programmer and figure it out. But I think all of us start with a blank piece of paper and a pencil. And that's how our drawings start. I like to paint, so once I get started on my drawings, some of my paintings are up here, I notice, on both sides. We take it from there, and then eventually we'll get into computer stuff, but I think every one of us starts with a pencil.
Great. I want to jump up to Mary.
Hi, I'm Mary Nestler. I came to Central Florida in 1972. I started with Disney in '82. I was with them for almost 15 years. Thought that I would never work for a theme park after that. And about a year later, I was hired by TJ. I started off with their Christmas, which was a very small program at the time. And we were able to grow it, and it was really exciting. And saw the guys working on Halloween, and I thought, that's so cool, but where are the women? And so I watched and I watched and I worked and got the opportunity a few years ago to start with Halloween and discovered my dark side and have been doing Halloween streets ever since. I tell people that I'm the Christo of Universal. I get to take an already exciting environment and for 28 days make it my own. And when you have 500,000 people viewing your work in those 28 days, it's a real eye-opening experience, and it's enough to make you immediately think about what can I do next year that's even more exciting. So the opportunities are wonderful. I started off as a fine artist, and I find that that works well for me in that I almost approach my projects as if they were paintings. And, you know, luckily TJ gives me the opportunity to do that.
Well, thank you. We'll push the microphone to the back. Curtis, our last designer here on the Scenic side.
Hi, my name is Curtis Hopkins. I actually started out a little bit differently in that I actually started out as an intern here with Universal. I grew up all my life in Florida, in the Tampa area, and then when I was getting into college, I decided to go to Detroit, and I wanted to be a car designer. So I left here, went to Detroit, started doing automotive design, and realized that that's not what I wanted to do, and how much I missed Florida. So I switched to product and exhibit design. It was my junior year, and I just shot my resume to any company I could possibly shoot my resume to get an internship. And I was fortunate enough for TJ to call me, and I did an internship during my junior year. Went back to school for my senior year and told everybody, man, I got to work with Universal for 3 months. And then upon graduation, I was searching for a place of employment. I called up TJ and I said, I'm getting ready to graduate, I'd love the opportunity to come back. And he said, yeah, I can keep you busy for about 6 months. And that was about 12 years ago. And I had no knowledge whatsoever of entertainment design, coming from an industrial design background. But once I got into it, it was just fascinating. And I started out doing Halloween for a few years, and then I made the switch over to the holiday program in Mardi Gras. So, for the past 5 years, I've gotten to design the Mardi Gras floats, which is kind of like a car, only a little more elaborate, a little more glittery, which is, and it changes every year, which is wonderful.
Well, great. Yeah, a fun story. When Curtis called me, it was about 2 weeks prior to graduation. After his internship with us, we recognized the wonderful talent that he was. And he calls me up, he goes, do you have any opportunities, maybe? And my first thought was, if I don't, I'm going to make one. So I said, so how much time do I have? He says, well, I got about 2 weeks, and there's 2 places. I talked to a bump company in Tampa, and somebody over, I think, in the Central Florida area. I said, okay, can you hold them off for 2 weeks? I said, I think I can. Luckily enough, we were able to get, like I said, a temporary 6-month position, and now 12 years later, it's the happiest thing I ever did. But he's been fantastic to work with us. But on the scenic design part of this, with these wonderful individuals, and as you can see, different backgrounds, different areas that they come from, that actually focus on bringing the words to life, is an interesting piece that you start to see take shape over in the attraction, or in the, I call it the attraction exhibit. Sorry, my world. But when you see that come to life, when you actually see the pencil doodle, that first shape, sometimes it's not even an actual stuff that you can recognize. Sometimes it's just a form on a piece of paper. And that's through all the different disciplines, from scenic design. We also have costume and character design up here, which I'll talk a little bit about. But it's interesting to watch how those things start to come to life, how they start to form. It's actually quite inspiring to watch that happen. But it goes through a series of process. You actually start with multiple sketches and drawings. It actually starts with this, and we actually ask them to not limit their thinking, is to do as much and as bold and as many as possible. And we'll actually start to filter as we start to refine and start to hone in on what makes the most sense, what answers the question that is the word that's been written by our creative team. As we start to do this, almost like a funnel. If you envision this as it starts to work its way down to 2 to 3 to maybe a handful, maybe 10 items that start to pop out from the hundreds of blue line little sketches that you do, you find those 1 or 2 ones that make sense, that actually answer the question correctly. And then from that point, you actually start to refine that to become what we want to present. We live in a world of what we call commercial art. It's not what makes you feel good, but also what solves the problem. The problem is what gets people excited, what people, gets them to do something that you want them to do. On our end, we're entertainment designers. We are actually looking about how to inspire, excite, scare, make you laugh, make you cry. So if that image can do that, then we're successful. So we take it to the next step. The next step is that once we get that image now approved, once that concept has been now kind of visualized as what it can become, it goes to the next step. And that's the next phase kind of the process in there. We actually took the process and broke it down into kind of 3 phases. There's the concept phase, the development phase, which we'll kind of talk a little bit about. The next part is the design phase. Is now that you know what you're going to create, how are you going to create it? How are you going to make it real? How are you going to make it physical? And it goes to the next level. We actually now start to take that piece and start to pick it apart. We actually now we're down to 1 drawing, but now what we start to do, we do the reverse. We actually start to make multiples of drawings now. You take every side of it and you kind of pick it apart and you look at it and you say, what does it take to create this 3 dimension? You know, space, size, scale. Sometimes what we have to create isn't something we've actually drawn. Sometimes it's something we have to find. We have to purchase, we have to go find it. That brings us to kind of our next set a little bit in here, which is some of the team that actually deals with actually making it come to life, the fabrication piece of our business. It is fascinating to watch it be drawn, but it's more fascinating to watch it actually come to life. We actually kind of, because we're in the Halloween business, lots of times I get to speak about how we create Halloween, and I kind of equate it a little bit sometimes to Frankenstein, the monster. We bring all these pieces and parts together, but it's also fascinating to watch it come to life. And this is what some of these ladies up here that fall into an area of our business called the design side that are called art supervisors. In the film industry, you call them, you know, set decorators. You know, they're shoppers, they're buyers. They actually take what the art directors or the designers have created, and they're responsible to bring it to life. They look at crews, we look at all the logistics, we look at the budgets. You know, there is a business side to creating art, and we do that. And these ladies do that on a daily basis. They create small things from, I gotta find this unique piece of item that maybe has to be surfaced or researched out of Iowa in a farm somewhere, which we've done. We did a cornfield many years ago. Or it's something that has to create multiple worlds that, like Mary has talked about, where we take a street and suddenly turn it into this unbelievable, crazy land of Alice in Wonderland. And how do you go out and find, you know, 3-foot-tall rabbits? These ladies do it, and I'll let them introduce themselves. Karen and Jane.
She wants that one, I think.
I'm Karen Rigsby, and I came to Orlando 31 years ago because my husband had a temporary job redesigning the interior of an antique airplane museum, which folded 6 months later, and we found ourselves in Florida with, we didn't know anybody, we had no money, we couldn't even afford to leave. So we got jobs for a theme party company in Tampa. We moved to Tampa. Our first paychecks bounced. My husband kind of hung out with a guy and tried to see if it would make into something. I ran off immediately and got a job in a bookstore. And eventually we got into theme parties, and then we got into film and television when the industry opened up. And we did that for another, say, 20 years. We both came from theater. Then in 2002, I started freelancing for Universal. At that point, I was doing set decorating and art coordinating, which is, art coordinating is the budget part of it when you're doing film or television. And set decorating is what TJ was saying, is where you're taking their ideas and making them real, finding the pieces, finding the, you know, making the pieces work, decorating the room, bringing the theme out into actual physicality. And so I freelanced for Universal a lot, loved it. They offered me a full-time job in 2007. I was on a film. I thought about it for about 8 hours, and I went, yeah, fine, I'll take it. And never looked back, and I have been just as happy as a clam ever since. We take their wonderful ideas and make them real. We have crews, we have buyers, we buy ourselves, we try to find the way to bring in, make the room or the experience or the float or whatever it is wholly real, bringing their drawings to life, essentially, which is, I guess, what we do, and we love it. I love it.
And Jane, once you say who you are, I want to ask you a simple question. What was the most unique thing that you purchased too? So let's talk about who you are first, and then tell me what the strengths are.
I'm Jane Wymore, and I moved back here from New York City in '92. And the first thing I did was a killer monkey movie, a B movie. You probably never saw it. And That was my first job in film, and I basically did film and television. I met a lot of these people either at Mickey Mouse Club. After a Killer Monkey movie, I did Mouse Club, pretty much. And then Nickelodeon after that. So that's pretty much my background, was film, television, commercials. And then since I knew TJ from this very strange puppet show we worked on, he gave me a job about 7 years ago. And Karen and I pretty much do exactly the same, so I won't bore you with any more of that, but because she said it so well. So,
So what was the most unique thing that you've ever purchased?
it's hard to talk and think at the same time. Why don't we ask Karen that question?
Move on.
All right, thank you.
No,
I can't think of
problem.
it.
We'll think of it later.
I'll think of it later. Yeah.
Sure.
Let somebody else talk.
The other fascinating thing about what it is we do, like I said, is not limited to, these ladies focus a lot of their time and effort on scenery, props, set dressing. If you're familiar with those type of theatrical terms or film terms, it's all the objects. If you were in this room, it's everything at your table. That could either be a prop, a piece of scenery, you know, or a piece of set dressing is the chairs you sit on, stuff of that nature. So every experience you come to see at Universal Orlando Resorts, be it in the Grinch Theater, and you see the wonderful interiors of a Who house, which you can't go buy a Who house interior. You have to figure out how to make it happen. These guys have maybe designed it, but these ladies have actually gone out and shopped it and found the fabrics that make the perfect statement in a Who house. And they've installed them with their crews. So it's interesting to watch how it comes to life, and it's fascinating to watch the level and the amount of detail that goes into it. You think of the one big object or item that maybe is what the show focuses around, but you don't really make the connection between all the stuff that surrounds maybe that big object or item or that character. So it's fascinating. Another piece that we want to talk a little bit about, even though these people do the design side too, which I'm going to get into, is about the character and the special effects makeup design. They also have them kind of steered into more of the fabrication piece because they're almost twofold. Where on some aspects, our designer worlds do the designs, and these ladies take over, they kind of make it come to life. These two wonderful personalities in the back do both. They actually create the character, but they also become part of actually making it come to life in the fabrication piece. It's our costume design, and like I said, our special effects makeup stuff. Susan actually wears two hats too in the back. She actually is my design manager. And I'll talk about the management of a design studio, which is also interesting. Back to that point, to the teachers in the back, I got 14 weird ones, I tell you. That I have fun with every day, but they definitely inspire me. But Susan, and I'll let her talk about what she's been and how many years she's been with us.
Hi, I'm Susan Moore. I came to Central Florida for the job, working at Universal 18 years ago. So I've been here forever. That's the way it is. I told someone earlier in the evening that I'm actually doing a lot of the things that I went to school for, which is unusual. I've been through school for theater and always wanted to be a costume designer, and went to school for that and continue to do that at Universal. So it's been great fun.
Hi, my name is Michael Burnett. I'm the makeup designer. I've been in Florida now for 7 years. I came, my background is film and television. I grew up in California. I've always been a huge fan of Universal Studios. I grew up in Orange County, California, which is about 60 miles away from Universal Studios in Hollywood. And as a kid, I remember sneaking out and taking a bus to, at about 12 years old, which I would not recommend doing nowadays, because you go through some really bad parts of LA. And going to Universal, so I've always been a big fan of Universal. I got to help as a freelancer when they opened the park here. So I've been involved with Universal since I think 1985, either in Hollywood or here. And the thing I really like about Universal Orlando and what we do with the characters and the makeup and the whole scenic design, especially Halloween's the biggest event that I work on, is is that it's a film quality. Like people come in and, you know, with Universal having the film background, people expect, I think, a higher level. And if you've seen the detail in the pictures, you'll know, even especially Halloween, if you ever get an opportunity to take one of the tours, we offer some special tours where you get to see the haunted houses with the lights on. You'll be amazed at how much detail that you can see. You know, the lighting, we have the special lighting to give the right mood for the Halloween, for the scares, but all the details in there, you could film a movie in there. In fact, they did, I think, two years ago, after Halloween, a film company came in and actually shot a movie in one of our sound stages, one of our haunted houses. So, so that's what I do.
Well, great. Well, they take, like I said, a lot of, again, what is the written word about a character. How do we create a character that you've never seen before? How do you create, one of our fascinating characters was a steampunk, which is a style of a wonderful way to create something, but we said, well, we'll put that with Wizard of Oz. And I want to do a steampunk Tin Man. Well, what does that look like? Well, we don't know. Well, Susan and the group came up with those visions of what they could look like, and then also responsible to make it happen. We have a wonderful team of fabricators in-house at Universal, of seamstresses that make a lot of the stuff that you see in the exhibit is stuff that's actually made on property at Universal Orlando. We go out and buy the fabrics. She actually every year tries to make it up to, or down to Miami or up to New York where she can, where it's a huge fabric show that deals with all the different types of fabrics and patterns and stuff like that. Sometimes we have to create our own fabrics and patterns. For the Grinch Who cast, we want all the Who characters to be unique and different. But at the same time, we want them to connect. In the village of Whoville, they're all somewhat strangely connected some way. And if you look at the costume that we have back there, and look at some of the pictures on the wall, there is a unique pattern that was designed. It actually became parts of the lining, some of the kind of the trim on some of the artwork, or actually the actual wardrobe itself. But it was all done as a holly pattern, kind of Christmas holly, that was designed, printed, and basically built in fabric and sewn into all of the characters' costumes to make them all connect. So again, it all starts kind of with Susan's world and goes on to the fabrication team. On Michael's end, okay, we know what he might look like as a crazy Tin Man, but what does he actually look like in the face? How do you make that face actually real and move? Again, figuring out the dynamics of how do you put makeup and prosthetics and unique and crazy noses on people, but make them sing, make them dance, and make them actually talk to you. And figuring out all of those unique aspects behind it is a lot of what Michael does, and does it through sculpting. We don't have a lot of his stuff actually in the space. We kept it more towards 2D art, but you see pictures of it somewhat represented in the back part of the space. But again, how that all works and comes to life is fascinating, and we've only kind of touched on that story a little bit. Another piece to talk about is the visual aspect of how everything is represented. When you get down to the parts, or the pieces and parts, or how we even message, or how we even tell you the story, sometimes we come back to that single piece. What's the name? What's the name of your show? And what does that logo or that unique graphic look like? Sometimes we have all of these designs, all these characters, and we come down and we ask this lady right here, make it simple, and make it about that big, and I can read on a postage note. And Lisa actually is our wonderful Scenic graphic designer, and she takes a lot of the stuff that we germinate for many months and asks now to, again, make it simple, make it clean, make it colorful, and bright. And she's done that for many years with us and been very successful. Let's talk about how many years you've been with us now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hello. My name, I guess this isn't working. How's that? Is that better?
That's good. Turn on.
My name is Lisa Surface, and I came to this area in 1980 from Connecticut, which I'm really glad I'm down here because it's a heck of a lot warmer. Went to school. Fortunately, I was born into this. Both my parents were commercial artists, so I kind of came out with a paintbrush in one hand and a crayon in the other. And everything from there has been pretty much history. But I did end up at Universal via a sign company. They coined my nickname, the Sign Queen. As I like to say it, environmental design. It sounds a little better than Sign Queen. So anyway, but that translated into working in the attractions side of Universal. I was there for over 7 years, and then ended up with TJ. I met TJ then. We were sharing a room together, or actually sharing a computer at the time. Hey, are you done? I ended up doing graphics, large format printing, logos, and the way TJ mentioned it is, I have to wrap all their ideas up into a little logo and translate that excitement, whatever it ends up being, whether it's, Horror Nights or their whole thing. So you get it in one little exclamation point. So that's basically what I do. But and then I do presentation work. So I take all their beautiful designs and put a little bit of sexiness into it, and we give it to the guys upstairs and make it look good, and everybody's happy.
Well, fabulous. Yeah, she's if you're familiar with our Halloween event, every year we have close to 13, 16 different attractions. And with that, everyone has a logo that has to be created every year since we changed it, and she's been part of that madness for many years. I'm going to step back here because the process continues through the design, the fabrication piece. We get to the part where we actually start to open the show and we get out there and we start to make it real. But at the same point, we're opening multiple shows, multiple designs are going at the same time, and then we actually start to figure out, well, how do we manage a design studio like that? I have two wonderful individuals. Like I said, Susan kind of shares one side of the business. She deals on the art side. So all of the scenic designers, graphic designers and stuff that you've met, and Michael actually answer up through her. The other side of that chain is Vicki Bolin over here, who deals with the art side or the design side, which actually deals with all the logistics, making it all real, how much time we have. I've been told I'm running long because I talk too much. She helps keep me in line in that respect. But she deals with all of that stuff because that's the business side of what we have to do. There's always the art side, but there's also the business side. She is fascinating. She's fabulous. I've actually known her for many years, and what you've actually kind of got a glimpse of a little bit is all of us, like I said, have come to Central Florida a different way. And I'll let her talk about how she came here and how we got to know each other. Then when we got to wrap up real quick, so I'm going to give you guys a chance for questions. I want to talk a little bit about why we're all together.
Hi, I'm Vicki Bolin. I've been here about 30 years. I came down as a graphic artist and got introduced to the film and TV industry and decided I would never go back to print. Sorry, Lisa. So my career grew in TV and film, and I was lucky enough to land a job at Nickelodeon Studios. Worked for them for about 7 years, and graduated and came to Universal, and have been with Universal for about 13 now. So what TJ was talking about was when I was at Nickelodeon, I was lucky enough that this young man came walking into the office with a little talented resume, and I was like, ooh, I think we need this gentleman on our staff. So I hired TJ. And his first job for me at Nickelodeon was to clean yak buckets. I'm not quite sure he's really forgiven me for that. But as I tell people in the industry, don't ever burn a bridge. Nurture the people around you, because you never know who might be your boss in the future. I also would like to say very quickly to the teachers in the room, I was lucky enough in the 6th grade to have a teacher who recognized that I learned differently. I was a visual learner. I was an artist. I was failing school miserably. My parents were upset. They didn't know what to do. But luckily, I had Mr. Rodriguez in the 6th grade who came to my parents to say, don't worry, you have an A student on your hands. She just learns differently. She has to make a pretty picture to understand the question. So it takes her a while to get through the tests. So thank you, teachers.
Well, like I said, I apologize it took a little bit longer, but I want you guys to get a chance to see the different personalities and the unique artists that have come together here for tonight's piece. The piece that also fascinates me, and I like the cat bucket story, is all of us have come to Universal Orlando through different means, through different reasons, through different outcomes. You know, came down here. I actually came down to get in the film industry and worked at Nickelodeon, cleaning gag buckets. But it's fun because, you know, the one thing we want to definitely illustrate to the audience tonight is that the art community in Central Florida is very healthy. It's very strong. It's vast and it's massive. If you have an opportunity to be in it, we tell people every day, I get a chance to talk to people that ask me the question, is it smart to come to Orlando? And I say, you know what, Orlando is a place to be if you want to do art. You know what, like I said, people look at me and say, why don't you want to go to New York or LA? And I said, you know what, Central Florida is a great place to live. There's an unbelievable group of artists that are here, and there's wonderful opportunities that are available to you every day. And we've had a chance to live that life for many years. And that was a part of what we got inspired to do this exhibit with the History Center, is to talk a little bit about that history, that Orlando is very rich in its design community. Most people don't see it. They see the end product. They see the wonderful products that get produced, but sometimes forget about all of these wonderful individuals and how many people it takes to produce it. And all of the different backgrounds and the diversities that make it so special, because the more people you have involved, and we love to live in a collaborative and design environment, the better the product is. And even tonight, the stuff that we're going to take away from you guys' questions and interest in what we do, we're going to make us better designers when we start again tomorrow. So I'll stop talking, because I talk too much and they will all say that, and I'll allow them to say that. But I want to ask you guys some questions, or you guys ask us questions about what is interesting or what is unique or what do you want us to explain. There are some areas I will probably raise my hand and say, I can't answer that question, because we still live in a world that has wonderful products that are in the future. And I can't talk about anything in the future. I can talk about everything that we have right now and everything that we have in the past. I got one question.
We have a question right here, TJ.
Yeah.
For anybody.
Yeah.
Two-part question. Number one, what is your favorite project that you've done? And number two, what project do you dream of that hasn't been created yet?
Good question. We are going to get slammed on a good question. Anybody want to jump on that that already has an answer?
Michael's got a microphone.
I was handed this Wow. Okay. Well, Halloween Horror Nights, of course, is my favorite event.
A certain year?
I'm sorry?
A certain year?
A certain year? Probably. What year we did with Freddie and Jason?
2007.
2007 was probably, we brought a whole bunch of my favorite horror characters to life, and it was very cool. We did Jason, Freddie, and Leatherface, and recreated them. And one of the cool things was we worked with New Line Cinema, who was who owned that property. So we took all their original pictures and resculpted, created the costumes, the whole thing. We did our own photo shoot, and we had to send them the pictures to get them approved, that they would say that was okay. So the story came back that the executive was looking, we had a set of photos in front of him and said, okay, this is great, these are, now let me see what the Universal stuff looks like so I can compare it to our original pictures. And he said, that is the Universal stuff. So he said, okay, well, I guess we did our job. So that was very cool. As far as the second half of that, I'm going to let Susan answer that.
Actually, I'd like to answer the first part. For me, working at Universal over all the years, opening Islands of Adventure was a great time. We got to work with the creative group who was actually building the park, and we spent a long time collaborating with them and getting things ready, and it was very exciting seeing the whole project come together from the very beginning, when we first started talking about it, to actually seeing everything starting to open. And going through the Harry Potter event that we did when that area opened gave sort of the same feeling. Just really great accomplishment. Who wants to do the second?
I'll answer.
Right down at the end.
Just This question was actually asked at the table I was lucky enough to sit at. They said, you know, what was your favorite project? And I said, it's the one that we start tomorrow. Because I don't know what it's going to be, but I know I get to work with these folks. And it's unique because you see any one of them in the parking lot or in the office and you smile. Because you know we're going to have fun. We're going to go with something completely new. And it is tremendously collaborative. It just doesn't start down at this end and go down there. It might start down here, but I'll go to Susan and I'll say, listen, I need international ambassadors from about 100 years ago. And before I know it, she's got fabric samples. She's named the characters. I collaborate with her. We cast based on this collaboration between her vision and mine, and it just turns out great.
Any question over here? Yeah.
Yes, I have a question. We read recently that the Jaws attraction is going to be going away. So my question is sort of twofold. One, do you have an emotional investment in the projects that you work on, and how do you feel when you think about this attraction that's been there for so long disappearing in the near future?
Well, we can talk about the projects we work on, and the one part that kind of came up a little bit is that we'll help define a little bit about our area of expertise and what we work on. We work on what's called the live show attractions, the stuff that's temporary in nature. It usually has performers involved in it. It's seasonal shows like New Year's Eve and Christmas and Halloween. The live or the permanent attractions like Jaws, you know, Harry Potter, Islands of Adventure is done by a different creative group called Universal Creative. They deal with what we call the permanent buildings, architecture, engineers, that type of different group set. So for us, we could answer the question on the emotional side towards maybe the seasonal stuff that we do. You have one?
Your question was sort of, how do we feel about, we were talking Jaws, but it also, I think, falls to sort of the entertainment stuff we do about when it goes away. And I've worked in attractions for a bit, but I've also do the entertainment. And I think the thing I find so fascinating about entertainment and theater in general, and the thing I love, and the thing that kind of drove me crazy when I was working with attractions, was that we work at such a high speed in entertainment. I mean, we have to conceive it, write it, design it, and put it up in such a short period of time, and then it all goes away. And to me, that's the fun, that's the fascinating. I see it go up. I have no long-term love for it because I know something new is going to come around the corner. So that's what keeps it exciting. Like I said, the time I spent working on attractions, because they're so long-term, they take 3-4 years of planning. That, for me personally, and I know that I can't speak for everybody, but at a certain point the spark wears off. You're, please just let this thing open, please. And with entertainment, it's all happening so fast, and that's what keeps it exciting and makes us grow so old so quickly.
So true.
What's your normal workflow for a given project from concept to completion, and how long does that usually take?
I can talk Halloween on that. David and myself and 2 show directors, Mike Aiello and Patrick Braylard, we started the first week in November working on Halloween for next year. And today we pitched 2 of the houses. We have 6 done, conceptualized. So we have 6 houses figured out. We have 2 more to go by Christmas. And then we'll roll out those 8 houses to the other managers, lighting, audio, effects, costuming, the second week in January. And starting then, we'll start drawing. We'll start designing what those houses look like. And it's a full year cycle. We'll open Halloween next year. And as it's opening, we'll start looking through that Halloween to see what worked and what didn't work and start the whole thing over again. And in the middle of that, like this morning, I had a 2-hour meeting with Jane and one of our other buyers, Richie Swim, for Mardi Gras, because I've designed 4 of the Mardi Gras floats, and I've got a painter in from New Orleans painting 4 of the Mardi Gras floats now. He's been working 12 hours a day painting those 4 floats, so I'm kind of juggling, and everybody here juggles multiple projects.
So what you'll get is like a Halloween, could be a year time frame, but sometimes we get a phone call that says, you know what, next month we want to do a show. And we get a week, or we get 2 weeks to produce the work too. So it definitely depends on an annual event, works in a cycle that we already have planned out, but lots of times we get unique requests because we're entertainment. Can we turn it around in 2 weeks because we have something special? We get 2 weeks.
Hey, this is for Karen and Jane. I want to revisit TJ's question a little bit and kind of ask it a different way. Maybe. What is the item that you had to source, or you just saw it on a concept drawing? You said, "There's no way we're going to be able to find this. Where are we going to even go to get this particular thing?" Can you remember something like that?
Actually, I have one of those. Actually, for me, it was 2 years ago, I believe, we did the Wolfman House when the movie came out, and David came to me and said, "Karen, I want to build a forest." I said, "Okay, you mean like a forest? And he went, "Yeah, you know, like a forest. And I was like, "Okay." And we eventually did find, I don't even remember how I started. I just started making random phone calls to people that seemed wood-related, somehow, or tree-related or something. And eventually I found the people that take the logs and make them into wood. I got them someplace up in North Florida. I can't remember what those people are called. And loggers, whatever. Sawmill. That was a sawmill, milling company. And they said, "No, you need to talk to some tree people. There's a guy out in Melbourne." And eventually I found this guy in Melbourne, and he said, "Yeah, I've got pine trees." And I said, "Well, I need trunks that are like 20 feet tall and, this big around." And, "Oh, yeah, okay." And so, sure enough, eventually he showed up one day with a big truck and a whole lot of long logs, tree trunks. And one of my crew, Melissa, my one really good female well driver, unloaded them from his logging truck, one trunk at a time. And the rigging department helped us. We put them up. They leaked sap for the next 2 months. And by the time it was over, everyone hated me. And that was an accomplishment.
It turned out beautifully.
I was really proud of that. The fact that I actually did deliver a forest, I was very proud. Yay! At least locally, that's the one I can remember the most recently.
Next question.
Jane finds everything.
My boss is going to answer for
All
me.
right, Jane's a little shy, but let me
Yes,
tell
I
you,
am.
she's one of the best shoppers you could ever dream to
Oh,
have.
Mickey.
All right?
Internet
This woman
queen.
has learned how to shop on eBay like nobody's business. In fact, I've seen her leave my meetings because she's in a bidding war on a piece that she's bound and determined not to lose. So, yes, she can't think of some of the hero products that she's bought right now, but you'll see some of them in the exhibit right across the street here. The tops to those trash cans I thought were brilliant.
Yes.
She's really good about researching back into like the 50s and the 40s and finding those hero elements. The other fun thing that we get to do as set decorators is a lot of times, like say when we did the cornfield, that was a real cornfield that survived 3 hurricanes and almost gave me a heart attack. But I wanted to find like in a 1940s tractor and an Airstream and things like that. And sometimes all we do is we drive the roads outside of town, and you'll see in a farm, you'll see the tractor in the woods and it's buried and you're like, that's it! So you drive around until you can find a number on the fence, or you can find the farmer, and so we're like detectives sometimes, and it's a really great job to have, and the designers do give us some challenges sometimes on how to problem solve what they want up there. But Jane and Karen are the 2 best shoppers you could ever dream to have on your team.
Thanks, Becky.
My question is for Susan, because I'm really into Project Runway and those kinds of things. So what are some of your favorite fabrics that you look for in some of the stores? Or do you follow any bloggers in sewing, or what magazines?
We are lucky enough to have certain fabric stores from New York who have reps that come and see us. So we're seeing the season of the fabric when it's coming out. And we at Universal look for longevity in things. So the fabrics that we're looking at is something that's really going to hold up to how long we need to have it out there. Because even though Mardi Gras is something that only lasts for a certain amount of time, it has a lot of wear and tear on it for the costumes. So we're looking at synthetic fabrics, things that are a blend. Usually we save the natural fabrics for one of the more of the show pieces that have to breathe so that the people don't kill themselves from wearing costumes that don't let any air in. I don't necessarily personally follow any magazine specifically. I try to watch people. I try to watch what's going on in the world. I try to look at all the new things coming out. I try to keep up with the movies that are going on. I try to watch the fashion that's in the world right now. You try to watch what the color schemes are that go along with things. That's what I do.
TJ, listening to your team and listening to Rick at the table, I had a kind of a history question that struck me. It seems to me that you're into the future and into the moment, but does Universal have a archivist or a historian that sort of captures your ideas and maintains them so that a researcher...
Are you applying for a job?
As long as I don't have to move to California. Sounds like a fun job, actually. But I think you get the flow.
It's interesting because I have to say I was lucky enough to be a part of the first, they developed an archives division out in LA that actually is for some of the LA movie division and some of the history of Universal Studios. Come to find out, as most of you probably know, Universal has been owned by various different owners. And over that, sometimes history is not retained. Well, back in, I want to say it was around the mid-90s when I first came on at Universal, I was lucky enough to be involved in a project that was called Lost World. It was a Jurassic Park second sequel, and got involved with the archives division. They had just established themselves, and they were actually trying to go back into history and buy back some of Universal's unique history that had been since, left its way like most things do. And they actually now have a robust archives division on the West Coast. We work with them, pretty much throughout the year for them to retain certain things that we do from a historical standpoint, but it's more from the permanent stuff that we do.
Right.
On the seasonal stuff, we are probably your archive division, and it's been fascinating to work with Andy and some of the exhibits team to hear and look through their eyes how they touch everything with gloves and how they handle everything. And we look at, well, that was just underneath my desk yesterday. But we've come to appreciate that knowing that, surprisingly, we've worked with this product for many years and now been involved with it for 20 years. Halloween has been around. That is history now. And we've now come to appreciate that and the significance of it by this exhibit and this collaboration. So for us, we now, I think, walk away with a different perspective of what we're doing. If I see any of them pull out a pair of gloves next week, we'll realize that it definitely has affected us. But it is a good question.
Yes, we have one more question in the back, and then we have time for one more question.
Hi. What would be your favorite hidden gem of the park? Like when you go there, you're just like, man, I love this place. Like, you know what I mean?
Good question. Has anybody got one to pop up top there?
Because I walk the streets a lot.
In the park.
Always looking for new areas for us to, put our zones and everything. I have to say, even though it isn't the Central Park, there are certain times of day that is such a quiet area that, and I'm surprised more people don't go up there and just, kind of observe the park from that area. And it's It's still, no, but it is, yeah. It really is sort of, you walk through it so quickly on your way to different things that you sort of take it for granted, but if you go up actually into the park and everything and just sit for a moment and people watch, it gives you sort of a really nice, quiet perspective of the park.
It's kind of like the real Central Park in that it's this little piece of land with trees and grass and some nice landscaping in the middle of all this chaos. And a lot of people blow by it just because they're on their way to E.T. or The Simpsons or Men in Black. And it is nice to go there and just sometimes just relax and edit. It's just very, very tranquil. That and right across the street from it is the
Garden of Allah.
Garden,
Yeah.
which is a little,
I've always wanted to live
it's just a nice
upstairs
little
there.
architectural
Oh, yeah.
area there. So they're not on the main map of exciting things to do, but it's something you may blow by and not think to look at.
Fascinating story that I love to talk about Central Park, because I remember walking by the streets real quick, and up in Central Park I could see some activity going on. What's happening? What's happening? This is quite a few years back, where we actually had the Marx Brothers as part of wonderful celebrity performers in the park. They were actually doing a wiffle ball game in the park. And it was fascinating to watch the employees that come to work every day really get joyful watching the Marx Brothers play around in the park on a wonderful sunny day. So it's fun stuff.
And let me just say that these are all liars, because every day they go to Starbucks. That's where they have
That's not hidden.
That's our shame.
Well, first, I'd like to thank everybody for the information you provided us. And in talking with Rick and hearing all of you, it sounds like you all just have a lot of fun every day in what you do and when you take time off during the day. But my question is, what do you do for fun in your spare time?
What is this term, spare
I remember my family one time, they were going to go to Las Vegas. And at first I thought, wow, that could be pretty exciting. And then I thought, well, you know what? You work in a themed environment. The last place I want to go is to a themed city. So I kind of begged out of that, and for me, what I do is I try to get back to nature, get outdoors, and get a different perspective, a different light, something that's not man-made or purchased off of the shelf. So that's how I usually regenerate.
For myself, with what I do every day at Universal, currently with the holiday program and in the past with Mardi Gras and stuff, my wife always asks me, we need to pull out the Christmas decorations and we need to decorate the house and all that sort of stuff, which we've now amassed 60 totes of Christmas cards. Nothing that is off the store shelf that can't be modified, because as soon as we buy it and I get it home, my wife says, I know you're not going to just hang that up. You got to do something to it to make it look a little different. So, in my spare time, especially around the holiday season, we strive to have the best house on the block.
The one thing I wanted to say to that point a little bit too, that I'll definitely because I don't want to throw it back to Sarah, and a big thank you, is the one thing that you get tonight, and hopefully that definitely will resonate as you leave, is unique individuals, wonderful talents from all different areas, but the one thing that connects all of them, is their passion. These are the most passionate people. I come to work every day, happy to be actually, involved with them on a level of seeing what they create, but watch how they go about what they do every day. It is a joy, it is a pleasure. We've actually had that wonderful opportunity to work with the museum staff, and it was great to be able to see that same type of passion and excitement about what they do. And we want to thank them for that. Another person I want to recognize, who's not up here because we ran out of chairs now, is Ray Kimes back here. Wave your hands. Ray is also another one of these unique individuals too that we're able to lure away from Philadelphia, and has done some wonderful art out there too. So please talk to him if you get a chance. But the thing that I wanted to end on though is to say that a lot of stuff within this audience, some of the people we got a chance to talk with. Fascinated with the worlds that history brings to you guys. Fascinated by the teachers, what they bring to their students. But the one thing that we've realized that has really become, I think, what has made this group successful is being able to do what you love and do it well, because that's what, when you say when you're done, is what makes us realize it's all important. And that, definitely I want to say thank you to Sarah and the museum itself to be able to give us an opportunity not only tonight to talk about this, but to be able to showcase what it is these guys love and do every day, but to be able to bring it to a bigger audience and hopefully to inspire the next group of people to sit in these chairs from the middle schools and the high schools and the elementary schools, and be able to kind of keep giving that message that Universal, not Universal, but really Orlando is the place to really expand your creative mind. There's lots of places to do it. This is a great place to do it, and we want to say thank you to the History Center to give us a chance to be able to talk about it. And thank you so much, Sarah.
Wow, who knew? Who knew that the inspiration of teachers, creative teachers like we recognize tonight, make something that is unique and wonderful and diverse, in which you all, as we all do, we make history every day. It's not necessarily the history we think we make as we get out of bed and go about our daily jobs. But we do make history, and one of the things I think that Universal does is to make some outstanding and fabulous, perfect memories for all of us when we experience their creative, the results of their perfect creative genius that is here. And I think one of them said it earlier, is that all those weird students that you have that don't make any sense, this is the flowering of that creativity. And I want to thank all of you for coming tonight and being part of this historic event, and for allowing us to share a dimension of history that I'll bet you all never thought existed. And I encourage you all to come back. We have a lot of programs that we'll be doing with the Universal team here. And it is a joy, it is a pleasure, and it is great to be here and to see this absolute creativity that is part of our community. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you all for being here as well. And enjoy.